question for clarification, because sometimes they're very expert and we really appreciate their expertise, I will clear the way for that. Check with me, but I can't imagine I would say, no, you're not allowed to talk to them. But our communications will be somewhat, you guys can either raise your hands using the raise your hand feature, but I can see you all. So if you want to just put your hand in the air, I will recognize you if you have a question, or when it comes to making motions and seconds on bills, you don't have to raise your hand to make a motion or a second. You can just kind of, call that in at the time. If I feel like it's time for one, I'll ask for one, but that doesn't mean you have to wait for me. You're allowed to make motions on bills if you want to, prior to us getting it. Still allows time for discussion if there's a motion and a second. And Alistair, was there anything else? Were there any other rules that I thought I had that I can't think of, that I'm not thinking of off top?
I think that's it.
Here. Okay.
Also include, which everyone has done so far, include your name or organizational affiliation, just so we know who we're talking to.
Right. Yeah, especially, and when we recognize, if we do call and you will ask, you can go ahead and activate your camera. We'll shut it back down afterwards. Then we can see you, and you can make sure. It's always important because everybody knows, all the advocates, that you tell us who you are and who you represent if we're using you for information, or if you're asking a question.
Delegate.
Yes, that's Sean.
Sorry.
That's Sean Mullen, who has the rather official looking thing there. Yeah, he is my chief of staff, and so it's his job to be the guy who runs the meetings. Have you made me a co-host yet there, Sean?
Yes, I did.
Excellent.
A few minutes ago.
I think we may be live right now.
We are live. OIS gave me a call.
Thanks for the warning.
OIS gave me a call and told me to go live.
Okay, so we are, and it says it in the corner that we are live.
Yes.
I'd like to welcome you all to the first meeting of the Early Childhood Subcommittee, which has some of the same members from last year, but a different makeup, and I'm pleased by the people we have. Welcome aboard. We're going to visit with two bills today. And those two bills are ones that were passed by this committee and by Ways and Means on the whole, and all the people in this committee were on Ways and Means last year when these bills passed. And so I'm going to start off with House Bill. We're going to go in numerical order, and also the first one's mine. So, why wouldn't I go first with that? House Bill 237, which is a bill about early literacy and dyslexia practices, creating what I would call dyslexia handbook. There's a number of parts of the bill. I'm going to do a quick review. If you need more information, we'll turn to Alistair and let him drill down a little bit. It creates a group of people that will actually work to develop a handbook that can be used by teachers across the state. MSD will make it available. They will also offer guidance on it because they are in the bill also required to not create a position, but designate someone to take the position of being point person for dissemination. And we had a letter from the state superintendent over the summer saying they had just the right person for that job. So that's good. Originally, the bill last year called for them to hire somebody. And if you look at the fiscal note, you'll see that it's a little high, and that's because that assumption was still made. And then the last part of the bill is, lost it. What's the last part there?
MSD has to update the handbook every 3 years, and MSD and the stakeholder advisory group need to develop tools and materials that are aimed at struggling readers that will help them.
So are there any general questions about the thrust of the bill? We have one amendment that we have to offer. We have considered offering, and I think we're going to. Okay, seeing none. Alistair, do you want to tell them what the amendment is and what it does?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I was just saying, there's a requirement in here that MSDE and the stakeholder advisory group that this bill creates must develop tools and materials to address the needs of at-risk and struggling readers and students with dyslexia. And this amendment would change the nature of that from their having to develop it to their just having to identify these reliable tools. And rather, so presuming that these tools exist, they would just have to identify them, and those would be the ones that would be used to address this population.
This amendment was suggested by Decoding Dyslexia. Actually Erin Parker, who was the woman who came on from my testimony in case there were questions that were too depthy for me to answer. And she sent.
Move favorable on the amendment.
Thank you. I have a favorable motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Okay. Marianne Lasanti Delegate Lasanti has seconded. Any on the amendment, any discussion? Okay, on the amendment, then all in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, the amendment carries. On the bill,
Move favorable on the bill as amended.
okay. He's driving his 18-wheeler in, that's what's going on there. I have a second. It's properly seconded. Is there any discussion on the bill as amended? Okay, seeing none. All in favor of the favorable on the bill, raise your hand, please. Thank you.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Second bill.
Did he crash?
This is HB 405, Delegate Lopez's bill. This is also a repeating bill from last year. The reason they don't seem familiar, 237 was actually Delegate Lukey's that I did. One was also his that he gave to Delegate Lopez to work on. We passed it in the at all levels on its way up. Well, actually didn't make it all the way up. It says that in a special education hearing, an IDEA hearing, if the plaintiff prevails, that the judge may award judges' costs and witness fees. There was some concern in the testimony about witness fees that this would break down the entire judicial system or would set a bad precedent, depending on how you look at it. It's my opinion that that's for judiciary to sort out. Coming from Ways and Means and being early childhood, I believe, and special education, I believe our part of it, since it's dual assigned, is to say, do we think this is a good idea educationally? So that's why I tend to think Bill's a good idea, but I'll open it up to discussion. There's none. So do I have a motion on the bill?
Move favorable.
I saw one favorable and one second. We'll go that way. Moved and properly seconded. Does anybody want to ask any questions about the bill? Or does anybody have anything they want to clarify or add?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea what the cost would be for a hearing?
I believe they asked that question in the hearing, and they didn't really say. They said depends on who the witnesses are. They really equivocated on that matter. So
Okay.
I don't know that we have a solid answer to that question.
Okay.
We learned, I could say, in the hearing that there have not been that many of these cases that have actually gone to litigation. It was, under 20, I believe, over the last 10 years or something like that. And they said that the cost ranged from some thousand to more than that, I think, depending on who the experts were.
But it still leaves it to the judge to really decide at the end of the day. It just gives them that. It just gives the judge another tool in the toolbox, basically.
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's not like they're required to pay it. The judge would, and I think if it was exorbitant, I would hope a judge would say, well, that's, we can award you some of that. But now I would like to think a judge would be judicious.
And there actually are in the bill, if the school system makes a settlement offer that ends up being as favorable or more favorable than the ultimate relief, the judge is not authorized to grant fees in that circumstance unless the parent was substantially justified in rejecting that settlement claim. So there's a little
Glad
bit
you
of
pointed that out, Alistair. That's an important part of it.
Yep.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, we already have a motion favorable and a second on the table. Is there any other discussion? If there's none, I would like to ask all in favor of this bill to raise your hands.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries unanimously. And we are done with our subcommittee meeting. We'll probably have another one on Thursday at maybe 12:30 or 1 o'clock. We'll be considering some bills from some other members of this subcommittee that you'll be hearing tomorrow. And then Thursday, we'll take them up in subcommittee. So leave a little space around lunchtime on Thursday. See y'all later. Thank you. Great
Thank
job,
you.
everyone. Thanks to all the advocates for being on.